I was a really fit kid. I wasn't the chubby kid. I wasn't the fat kid. I was always really active, very much into sports, very fit. And this doctor's looking at me and he's like, "Did you know you're obese?" I'm like, "Who are you talking to? What?"
Yeah.
He's like,
is there someone standing behind me? Everybody, welcome to Fulfillment Project. Today, we are talking to Scott Putnam, author of Revenge of the Herds, which I have with my beef-stained fingers in my hands here. He's also the founder of Inventor's Edge. So any of you that have an invention that you're thinking about taking to market, bring it to Scott. I will drop that info in the description. It's really amazing, the stuff he's developed, created, and launched in market and the things he's supported. But that is not why we're here today. I want to talk about his book. And I'm actually not coming in this as a convert. I eat meat. I also, at the same time, as a meat eater, I think our food system does have problems that we can't ignore. And what I want today is just some clarity. Where is the evidence strong? Where is it mixed? And what's the most honest path forward for someone who isn't going vegan tomorrow, but also appreciates that something needs to change? And when I read Scott's book, I disagree with the premise and the conclusion, but I agree with most of everything in the middle. There's so much good stuff in here, and your humor and your wit, Scott, I appreciate so much, like your epigraph here. It's a book on your story about veganism, and your epigraph is, if God didn't want us to eat cows, why did he make them out of meat? Homer Simpson. And just the way you write, you're so light and airy. You don't take the hardline religious end, which actually I read through the whole thing, and it's an enjoyable book, and I learned a lot, and I really appreciated Revenge of the Herds. Even when I disagreed, I enjoyed getting your take on it because I believe it's authentic and real. So with that intro out of the way, Scott, welcome to the show.
"Hey, thanks so much. I'm so glad to be here. I appreciate it."
Scott, before any arguments or anything like that, can you just give us the origin story? What happened in your life that made food feel like a moral and health emergency?
Yeah, that's such a great question. For me, I got to give you a little backstory on myself too. I mean, I describe myself as I've been a happy carnivore my entire life. I had no plans to change. I was happy eating meat, and I used to brag about eating whatever I wanted, and I'm still healthy and everything's fine. And then we moved to China, and that opened my eyes to all kinds of things, but especially how animals are treated. And that was the precursor. I was still eating plenty of animal products in China, but came back to the US due to some kind of double whammy with health issues with my in-laws, and a lot of the people I know that have had illnesses, are diet related. But it was also a time where I had a physical, came back, got a physical, and it was the first time anyone described me as obese. I was a really fit kid. I wasn't the chubby kid. I wasn't the fat kid. I was always really active, very much into sports, very fit. And this doctor's looking at me and he's like, "Did you know you're obese?" I'm like, "Who are you talking to? What?"
Yeah.
He's like,
is there someone standing behind me?
"Yeah." I'm like, "I got a lot of muscle mass going here. I mean, come on, let's get real." And he's like, "Oh no, let me show you."
Well, we all know BMI is a hoax. BMI is not a real thing.
That's what he opened up. He's like, "Let me show you your BMI. You're like 31. You're right in the middle here." And I'm like, "What?" I'm looking at him, and this doctor had this great big belly, and I'm thinking, if I'm there, where are you, man? and, and so to get back to the question, that was the first spark. And then it was after that, I watched a documentary called Forks Over Knives, which was just for me like mind blowing. Like, oh, this is so simple. This makes so much sense. And then after that, we decided as a family to try plant-based eating. Like, let's just do this for 10 days because this feels like a lot to do. And it's such a shift. And it's very much, a lot of it is mindset as well. But then I started having these other experiences that were really profound. And I felt it's all in the book. I had the crazy ham story. I had some wild dreams. that are just really, I couldn't even make this stuff up. And so I felt like the animals were somehow communicating like, hey, you gotta get this story out there. So it had been several years. And then I decided, okay, I just have to do this. But the book took 5 years to write just because it was this side hustle thing that I was working on.
So, as you're making this transition, not even thinking nutritionally, Scott, but like emotionally, was it hard to bridge the gap going from eating whatever you want, kind of whenever you want, to this plant-based diet?
The transition was really, for me, I'm kind of either all in or all out. So we decided we're going to go all in. Some people do like meatless Mondays and then they kind of slowly transition to eating, a veggie burger instead of a regular burger once in a while or those kinds of things. I knew all that was is a recipe to keep doing what I've been doing, continuing
Yeah.
eating the way I always have. And so I knew for me, like we need to just go all in. Emotionally, there was this interesting feeling of really, for the first time in my life, eating in alignment with my values. Because I love animals, I always have. And I never really wanted to know the story behind how the neatly packaged chicken or beef or ground beef or whatever in the grocery stores got there. I knew it was a horror story behind the scenes. I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't even want to think about it. So once I knew that I wasn't contributing to some of animal agriculture and all the horror stories behind it, there was this feeling of I felt lighter. I felt like my energy had increased and my body had a new kind of buzzing sensation. That's where I started. My body just wanted to move when started right away. So I started this couch to 5K and kind of became a runner, which I still make fun of myself because I've always hated running. And then eventually did a 5K, did a half marathon, ran a marathon. It's like, am I a runner now? Like, what happened? How did this happen?
So, I've seen a lot of the documentaries, and Big Ag is pretty gross, disgusting. We've all
Yeah.
seen the pink paste of the McNugget at McDonald's and that stuff.
Yeah.
The converse of that, though, to me, isn't no meat products, no animal products. It's looking at the traditional farmer, which is the way our system was until the Industrial Revolution. And I know many farmers in my family and friends, and nobody I know loves animals more than the people that raise them and care for them and nurture them. And some of these are pretty big operations, thousands of head of cattle,
Mhm.
tens of thousands of chickens, and they love their animals. So the whole spiritual side, which is kind of what I'm sensing, is that a fair way to frame it, that you had kind of this spiritual sense that it was wrong to kill animals?
I did, yeah. Intuitively, and then through some pretty powerful experiences of dreams and almost like visions, which I describe in the book and the crazy ham story. It really, when I realized and what opened my eyes to the idea that pl- I didn't know plants had protein. There's always such a protein thing, but when I realized that and realized I don't have to eat animals, it was kind of like oh, like a paradigm shift for me.
Can you share some of those dreams or some of those stories, um, just to give people a take at what you went through?
Yeah, the first one was really powerful, and this is where I talk about in the book, like, okay, this is gonna sound woo woo, and I'm very much a very down to earth person. Like the woo woo stuff took me a long time to even open up to at all. I mean, I'm not a woo woo guy now, but I do believe that we are connected, mind, body, spirit, very uh, integral, integrally, I guess.
Hey, everyone. Quick 10-second ask from you. If you're digging the show and you're watching on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up and comment your favorite part. If you're listening on Spotify, please give this show a 5-star rating. On iTunes, please leave a quick review. If you're listening on Substack, please subscribe and join the comments. You may want to subscribe in a few different places. For example, YouTube, you get all of our short content, 60-second to 90-second clips, our segments where we segment out 1 to 6 minute different segments of each episode. And then if you subscribe on the Substack, I summarize the episode in a newsletter. You can read it in a couple minutes. And then a couple days after the episode, I put out a self-reflection guide to help you personalize the content to your life. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Please share it with a friend.
So the first one was I used to sell wine, and I was in a Safeway in the Seattle area in line. Well, I was writing the wine order. My stomach's growling. I go to the deli. I'm like, I'm just going to get a sandwich. I got up there, and there was a pretty good line, and there was all these like different hams that were for sale, on sale. So I asked if I could just try a sample of like the honey baked ham, and the deli lady was like, sure, here you go. She handed me just one thinly sliced piece of ham, and I got it right about to my mouth. I didn't even put it in my mouth yet. And all of a sudden I had this feeling of absolute horror about eating animal flesh. It was like this wave that washed over me. And in that moment, I also had visions that were just like these little flashes in my mind of like pig faces and pig parts and slaughterhouses and very dark and blood, like all in an instant. And then I'm standing there like, what the hell was that? What just happened?
Yeah.
There's people behind me waiting in line, and I'm like looking at the lady like, what did you do to this ham? Like, what? And so I just said thanks and I left. But then I had this in my hand, so I ate it just to kind of get rid of it. I didn't want to be rude and just throw it away right in front of her because I asked for it. And it was the first time I'd ever had an experience that was that powerful. And it was as powerful as like watching my daughter being born. I mean, this is like really a powerful experience. And I looked into that and did some more research and found out that it apparently I'm not the only one that's ever happened to. They call it an energetic transference, where somehow the energy in that meat that the animal had transferred to me. So I was seeing and feeling what the animal saw and felt. And I know that's where it gets into the woo-woo stuff.
Well, I believe in a sense, and maybe it doesn't matter what I believe, but everything is energy. Everything around us vibrates. There are sound waves. There's 1% of reality we can see. 99% of reality we can't see. So I think there's a lot more stuff going on than we realize, especially with technology now, with the microwaves and the EMF and all the waves, internet, radio. We know this stuff is all around us because it's on our phones, but you can't see it. And so I think there's other aspects to this as well that you hit on. So it doesn't sound woo-woo to me necessarily. I've never had the experience.
Yeah.
What I initially thought of reading your book, Scott, was from like a spiritual level. And I'm going kind of for the jugular here, but maybe I'm going to miss. But everything living has a soul. If you look at philosophy, like everything that is alive has a soul of one nature or another. You'd argue if it's eternal or not, this or that. But so plants are also living things. What's different between a plant and an animal? Like, why can you eat a plant but not an animal? They're both alive.
Yeah. It's like the Omnivore's Dilemma book. He talks a lot about that. I think there's a difference between, the argument would be, well, does it have a conscience? Is it sentient? Does it have feelings? Does it have the organs that allow it to have physical feelings? Plants don't. Animals do. I mean, that's really, obviously as humans, we have to eat something. If we're taking animal,
Yeah.
otherwise what's left? Sand. So yeah, that's really anything that has a face or a mother. I think that really, and can feel things, has emotions, is sentient, which there's I mean, you could probably argue, well, plants respond to music and they must feel things, but not at that level. So that's really where I draw the line.
Got it. And that makes sense. And I wonder if it is more of a nuance where different people draw the line at different places. Animals have faces, animals have mothers, animals have emotions, animals can feel things.
Hmm.
Would you equate animals at the same level as human beings? Is there a hierarchy?
I think, if you look at the food chain, obviously we're at the top of that. I do feel like we share a lot in common with animals that people may not think of: companionship, fun, joy, love, hurt, fear, horror. I mean, there's a lot of the emotions that we do share with animals as being part of sentient beings in a physical world on a on a planet. I think the perception is different though, because we're up here, animals are down there. We can kill and eat whatever we want because we have that right as humans because we're higher on the food chain. But I think where it gets interesting though is where the lines get blurred between, why is that animal food and that animal's our pet? Like nobody would really think about, or you think about eating dogs, which is really normal in North China, especially. We'd never consider it, but you watch a video
Yeah.
of a little piglet and a little puppy and they're playing together and they're running around. And, it's just that we perceive that's a farm animal, that's food, that's a companion that lives with us. Right.
It is interesting. And that's, I mean, to me, again, which may not matter at all. Like if the Chinese want to eat dogs, great. If I don't, because I have a dog as a pet, also great. If you want to be a plant-based eater, awesome.
Yeah.
What's curious to me is there's a little bit of I was getting a little taste in your book that you might make an argument that it's wrong to eat animals. Did I misread that, or was that an accurate reading that it's wrong to eat animals?
Mm, that's a really fair question. I think it comes down to values. My goal for the book wasn't to say, "Hey, I'm right, you're wrong, and you should be condemned for eating animals." Again, I wrote it as someone who's been a happy carnivore most of their life. The
Yeah.
the whole goal of the book was really more about sharing my experiences and saying, "Hey, here's another way to look at this. These animals that we eat and don't think twice about what they went through are having their revenge on us, our bodies, our health, our planet." And I just wanted to share that perspective. It was kind of a fresh perspective, not to be some, you know, like, I don't know, PETA protesters and you're all going to hell because you're eating bacon or whatever, but really just to say, hey, here's just another way to look at this, to open some eyes to a different perspective.
Which I really loved. And that's why I wanted you on the show, Scott.
Yeah.
So let's go to that part, the revenge part, because I think there's massive, for my disagreements, maybe in the beginning and the end, in the middle, the revenge part, I think is really true. What revenge is Big Ag taking out on us? What revenge are these animals taking out on us? How would you frame it up?
Yeah. I would frame that as there's multiple layers to this. The real revenge, I think, is if you think about what are most humans suffering from a medical perspective, they're, most of us, it's lifestyle diseases, heart disease, hypertension, even certain types of cancer can be really drawn back to what's at the end of your fork. I don't think anybody could argue that if you ate, you know, red meat and bacon every day for the rest of your life, you're going to live a long, healthy life. I mean, there's proof that cholesterol and fats clog our arteries. And even when you think about some of the dementing illnesses, it's similar. It's plumbing, right? It's circuitry. So um, a lot of things that the heart's, some of those valves and blood vessels are a little bigger than the ones in our brain. But most of the diseases people suffer from, including autoimmune diseases, most of it's diet related. there's arguments about genetics and all those kinds of things, but um, we could probably get into that in a little bit. But to answer your question, that's a big one. You're talking about revenge on our bodies, um, our minds, our hearts. I mean, in the book, I cover all of those things and really break them down, even from our eyes and our skin. But from an environmental perspective, I mean, we're bulldozing rainforests in South America to plant corn and grains to feed to cows that aren't meant to eat them. So we have to give them all of these drugs to counteract the effects of the food they're not supposed to eat so we can eat them so they can turn around and give us heart disease. It's like, does any of that even make sense?
Yeah. Well, and you have a really compelling argument in the book is that, as I would interpret it, miseating meat, overeating is a direct line to a lot of the dysfunction in our health system.
Yeah.
How much of that do you think is processed meats versus whole grass-fed meats? Like, we're buying our meat from a regional farmer,
Mhm.
grass-fed stuff, really good. I could go and look at the cow if I wanted in the pasture.
Yeah.
Um, how is that compared to your Oscar Mayer honey baked ham? Or I guess those are two different brands, but like your Oscar
Yeah.
Mayer turkey and your honey baked ham.
Yep. It it is different from the standpoint that it's healthier, but you're still talking about something that's arguably unhealthy to begin with. But I wanted to mention too, people don't even realize this, but processed meats, hot dogs, thing, things that are really processed like that are considered a class one carcinogen, meaning same as smoking, same as asbestos. They cause cancer. Look that up. I'm not making this up. This has been proven, but there's no warning labels on bacon and hot dogs. So those are probably the worst of the worst with meats. Getting things locally sourced um, is better, but it's still something that you're still consuming all of the cholesterol, all of the fats, all of the things that um, are not doing your body any favors and arguably causing a lot of the diseases in the world. And I know there's a lot of pushback because people care about what they eat. When you're talking about taking, let's say, turkey away from grandma at Thanksgiving, it's like you're cutting pretty close to the heartstrings there. And
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing about transitioning, for people that want to transition away from meat. But you keyed into something earlier too about the farmer, the way it used to be, and even now, quantities. You go back and it's like we didn't used to eat, you know, 84-ounce steaks and giant, chunks of meat. I mean, it was smaller bits of that. And if you look at cultures around the world that are the healthiest on the planet, they're eating mostly plant-based, grains and fruits and vegetables and little bits of meat. They're way healthier than, those of us that eat meat 3 times a day, 365.
Yeah, well, and there is certainly a gluttony versus prudence argument that, again, another thing in your book that I totally agree with, which is we're not meant to consume as much as we consume. And because it's so readily available and so easy to access, people are overfeeding themselves, me included. I have a joke when I overeat at dinner, like, oh, I was overserved. And my wife always says, yeah, by yourself. And it's like,
Right.
wow,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's like moderation in all things. And I haven't focused it on Fulfillment Project yet. 53 episodes in, a new topic we can uncover, but anything in excess is not good.
Right.
And so moderation, virtue is the mean between nothing and excess,
Mhm.
as the ancient philosophers would say, although I think I butchered it a little bit. But
Yeah.
so I think you hit the nail there, Scott. Anything else to talk on that point of moderation versus gluttony?
I- Yeah, I think I think people don't even realize it, you know? It's like it's just normal. If that's the way you've always eaten, everybody around you's eating that way, and everybody, you might be obese or overweight, and so are all your friends. Like, it just becomes really normalized. And we're a society that is not healthy. The cost of the healthcare system right now, the trajectory is just unsustainable. It's like, well, what caused this? What changed? Because since the dawn of time, man, this is like a more recent thing. And then you can look at the timing of, well, when the fast food, the TV dinners rolled out in the 70s, fast food, it's like you can, it's chartable. There's graphs out there that you can look at that show the increases in disease that follow that so perfectly. So I think it's a combination of processed foods, storming onto the scene, as well as just people just eating more.
Something you hit home, I agree with wholeheartedly, is the processed foods thing. I think we have to get, as a society, we got to clean up our processed foods. You eat from the perimeter of the grocery store, not from the middle of the grocery store. Get those whole foods. And
Yeah.
it's a little more expensive, and it certainly is. But if I take your other point, Scott, where we don't need to be eating as much as we are, well, it'll still probably cost more, but maybe not that much more because you don't need to eat as much as we're eating already. And these processed foods were made to make us, they're engineered scientifically to make us want to eat more. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
think you've got a great, I think you've got a great point there. A curious point, is there anything that could convince you to going back to eating meat? If you had a magic wand or someone had a magic wand, they could do anything to make you think, okay, I can eat meat again. What would it be?
Man, honestly, I couldn't think of anything for a couple reasons. One is I've sort of lost the taste. Like, I don't crave a cheeseburger, or if I see somebody eating a corn dog or some bacon, I don't have that. Oh God, that I smells amazing. I want that. So I wouldn't even have a desire to do it. Um,
Yeah.
we're not 100% in terms of all animal products and that kind of thing as a family. When we got our kids into this, we didn't tell them, oh, you can't go to Susie's birthday party because they're going to have, pepperoni pizza or cheeseburgers or whatever. So we let them decide, but expose them to the way we eat. And that becomes normal. In the beginning, it seems so extreme, but then what feels extreme or seems extreme just becomes normal. And
Yeah.
to piggyback on that too, what we were talking about earlier, um, I worked with a local doctor to do a 10-day study with some actually employees of the medical institution locally that were at higher risk in terms of a little bit obese and some high blood pressure, and they had some biomarkers that weren't, where they would be considered optimal health. So we had a group of 10 people, put them on a plant-based diet for 10 days, did all of their biometric blood work before. They had to agree, like, we will provide the food to you for 10 days, all your meals.
Yeah.
At the end of it, do the test again and compare. Very consistently, weight dropped, cholesterol dropped, blood pressure dropped across the board. And the doctors were like, there's no way a medication could do that. It was that dramatic.
So I've heard similar things about people that go on the carnivore diet where they give everything up, and you see these stories online. People just eat red meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
Mhm.
and all their biomarkers are positive. Cholesterol goes away, eczema goes away, psoriasis goes away. Have you looked into any of the carnivore stuff and how it compares to plant-based?
Uh, I have. I've looked at some of that. I There's one missing piece to those diets, which is something the human body absolutely needs, and that's fiber. Meat doesn't have fiber. Our bodies are designed to require fiber to move things through. Just from a biological standpoint, even our colons are more like an accordion where they have all
Yeah.
those waves, which require some fiber to push things through. Versus if you look at the colon of carnivores, lions, tigers, it's very smooth. So all of the fat, the cholesterol moves through it and it doesn't get stuck. There's a lot of other things in terms of arguing for a plant-based diet, in terms of like we don't have claws to catch animals, we don't have fangs, those kinds of things. But to get back to your point about some of those other ones, I think the big thing with that is how, how does your liver look? I don't understand how cholesterol could go down if you're eating nothing but red meat. I mean, that seems like that's impossible, but anybody that's looking at studies or reading books that reference studies, go to the source. Like, who funded the study? That's always a really key thing because a lot of times they'll take out those little bits and pieces that work in favor of whatever they're arguing.
Yeah. Well, and my takeaway as a non MD, non research based person is anytime someone dramatically changes their diet, either way, they stop eating in excess. They eat moderately.
Mhm.
Typically, like you felt personally, you feel more compelled when you're eating better to exercise, maybe not drink alcohol at night. Like it's hard to know what's correlation and what's causation. Like
Mhm.
we switched you to a plant-based diet for 10 days and all your markers changed. Well, of course they did because you stopped eating like a pig. And maybe the same with the carnivore diet is, well, you can only eat so much meat. My brother-in-law has tried to talk me into it, but I'm like, I can't imagine waking up and eating meat for breakfast. That's just not something that sounds appealing to me.
Yeah.
And nevertheless, you can only eat so much of it. So, is it correlation or causation? Your fiber argument is really good, something I hadn't heard before and I want to look more into. Why should people care about plant-based versus animal-based? We kind of jumped right into it,
Mhm.
and maybe we should have started here. Like for the listeners, why should they care about this? Why should they look more into it for themselves?
I think it really depends on the person and looking at your own value system. Do you care about the environment? Do you care about your health? Do you care about animals? And I think a lot of people say yes, of course, yes, 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 yes. But it's really it's really convenient to keep doing what we've been doing. It's familiar, it's
Yeah.
comfortable. When you're talking about something that feels like it's just going to knock you off your horse and be really extreme or extremely hard to do, it's easy to come up with reasons not to change for all of us. And from someone that likes routine, you know, I like things. I don't like constant change. So initially for me, I just had to make the decision. What I usually tell people is don't take my word for it. Just try it. See how you feel. Let how you feel be the judge of how you want to continue. And from the very first meal that didn't have meat that I ate, I felt different. I felt like I could go do something. I didn't have that normal like, oh, I ate too much. I just want to lay on the couch feeling. It's like
Yeah.
it was really I didn't know how bad I felt because that just became the baseline. For all of us, we don't know
Mm.
how bad we feel until we feel better. It's
Yeah.
just what we're used to. It's the norm. So I say try it and you be the judge and I'm not here to condemn anybody but what we eat is very personal to us. And you're talking about really ingrained values, family, when you're talking about family and friends, events, holidays, picnics, sporting event, like food is always a part of that. It's part of our culture. And so when you talk about rocking that, it can feel very like, oh, get the hell away from me, you freak. I'm, like vegan freak. I don't like the term vegan either. I go plant based. I have leather jackets and
Plant-based.
leather belts. Like don't tell my PETA friends about that. But, um, but it's really
I never even thought about the whole leather equation to this.
oh, yeah,
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
feathered pillows, there's a lot, but
Yeah.
I
Whoa.
I don't get into all too much of that in my book. Maybe that'll be another book. But,
the follow up.
yeah,
Scott, this has been so good. If listeners aren't ready to go fully plant-based, but you said a lot that's intriguing to me
sure.
and probably to them too. What are 3 things they can do, they can act on today in the next week to kind of take steps in the direction you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could try a meatless Monday. That's a really common thing that people will do. And just see if you notice anything. Maybe you won't feel that different, but if you do it consistently, you might. The number one thing I tell people, if you really want to test this and you really want to see if there's a noticeable difference, ditch dairy completely out of your life. Try it for uh, one day. I'd say give it, if you could do it for 3 days or 5 days or a week, you will feel different. I'm talking about cheese is gone, cottage cheese, milk for sure, ice cream. Just try that, because that's milk is really considered kind of liquid meat. And humans,
Whoa, I've never heard that before.
yeah, you see low fat, whatever, but there's so much fat and cholesterol and dairy, not to mention the IGF-1 growth hormones, billions of pus cells. There's so much in there that obviously the dairy industry is not going to tell you, but it's FDA approved. But if you dig into this, it'll blow your mind. The biggest problem too, that's been linked to different types of cancer, is the casein protein in dairy.
Yeah.
If you look at, and this is in books, and I think they cover it in Forks Over Knives, but if you look at places around the world that consume the most dairy, and then look at the diseases in those specific geographic regions, they correlate perfectly. Areas that consume the most dairy also have the highest rates of osteoporosis, colon cancer, breast cancer, which you'd think, how is that even possible? It's all linked. I mean, and if you really zoom out, it's like, why are humans drinking the milk of a different species of animal? It's like, it's kind of,
Yeah, aren't we the only one that does that?
yeah.
Does any other animal drink the milk of another animal?
No, dogs don't drink giraffe milk or
Yeah.
even goat milk. Humans are the only ones. And it became this industry, and part of, especially in America and the West, just part of our lifestyle, part of our culture.
Okay, so meat-free Monday, give up dairy for a period of time.
But
What else can people do that are interested?
I think the third thing would be, go to, if you can get close to a factory farm, learn where your food really comes from. How
Mm.
how have the JoJo's to go find out where your food really comes from before it's neatly packaged in grocery stores. Be willing to go to PETA's website and look at the horror behind that. If if you have, I always tell people, I mean, if you have the nerve to eat meat, I say that now that I'm on the other side. I would have laughed at people that said that before. You should have the nerve to see where it comes from. And
Yeah.
I think if kids were exposed to where chicken McNuggets, if you rewound that and saw where it started, or a McDonald's hamburger, they would never touch meat again. It's intensely horrific on so many levels, not even to mention the torture that the animals go through, but just what all that looks like and smells like.
That's a great recommendation. That's one thing that got me off of processed foods is reading the label. What someone gave me a practical tip is like, read the ingredients of everything you eat.
Yeah.
And then I flipped the package over and saw that, like, holy smokes, what I thought was beef jerky has like 30 ingredients in it. And then you start looking them up and they're just chemicals. They're like human engineered chemicals.
Yeah.
And it's wild how much stuff they're putting. And that really opened my eyes to the processed food component of this, which
Yeah.
I couldn't be more against. And even still, to your point, it's like, I know it. And because I'm weak, I still eat it sometimes out of convenience because I crave the flavor for whatever reason. It's being offered and I don't want to be rude, whatever. So this is a real, I just love, Scott, you're so good at, you're so approachable about it because you're not militant about it. I just love your angle on it. And man, I wish we could talk more. Anything you can leave with me, with the guests, where can they find you? Where can they learn more if they want to know more?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of what we talked about is in the book, Revenge of the Herds. It's on it's
I
on
got it,
Amazon.
baby.
Sweet. Yeah. My shameless plug here. I'd love to know what people think about that. In this book, there's in the back, there's tons of resources for, hey, here's some documentaries, here's some recommended books you can read. The China study written by Dr. T. Colin Campbell is fantastic. Talks about him going to China because the thought was there's a protein problem. They need more protein in China. And what he found out
Yeah.
is the areas where people are eating less protein, less animal foods were way healthier than the urban areas that were eating more animal foods. They were sicker. He's like, this doesn't make any sense. What's going on here? So did much deeper studies and wrote the China study, which talks a lot about cancers and heart disease and strokes and a lot to unpack. It's a fantastic book. Um, Getting in touch with um, PCRM, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, with Dr. Neil Barnard is great. There's a lot more. Dr. Greger, Dr. Esselstyn. A lot of these doctors are in Forks Over Knives. So I think if this is resonating with anybody and they're just curious about like, okay, this is resonating with me. I want to do something. Just start watching a few of those documentaries. They're really eye-opening, mind-blowing. And when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And so,
whoa.
Yeah.
Amen. Scott, thank you so much for coming on Fulfillment Project today. It's been a real joy talking to you.
You too. Appreciate it, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, everyone. Quick 10-second ask from you. If you're digging the show and you're watching on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up and comment your favorite part. If you're listening on Spotify, please give this show a 5-star rating. On iTunes, please leave a quick review. If you're listening on Substack, please subscribe and join the comments. You may want to subscribe in a few different places. For example, YouTube, you get all of our short content, 60-second to 90-second clips, our segments where we segment out 1 to 6 minute different segments of each episode. And then if you subscribe on the Substack, I summarize the episode in a newsletter. You can read it in a couple minutes. And then a couple days after the episode, I put out a self-reflection guide to help you personalize the content to your life. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Please share it with a friend.